What's up, YouTube? So today I want to talk about some of the more generative features in Pigments Sequencer. So most of those features aren't particularly new to Pigments 5. However, the fact that you can save your sequences and recall them on other presets, I think is a really cool feature, because we can create these kind of generative sequencer patches and then just load it up on another preset. So anyway, let's dive in and have a look at what I'm talking about today. So to get started, we've got a init patch in Pigments, which is essentially just a sine wave on engine 1 and no effects, no sequence, nothing happening. So the magic of what I'm going to be talking about today revolves around the randomization in the sequencer over here. So if we enable the sequencer with this on button over here, just straight off the bat, if we hold a note, it's going to start kind of just generating like a repeating note pattern. Here, we can actually get it to randomly generate us some melodies. So what we can do is we can choose particular scales to kind of work within. And here is a cool thing. Not only are we kind of limited to scales, we've actually got a set of kind of more interesting note choices, which are perhaps here, for example, this is a Phrygian scale, and it's called the acid generative. We've got contrasting minor, which is, it looks like a general kind of minor scale. However, here it looks like there's these, each note has a different kind of like probability, which I think is really, really powerful. So we can still change that. So for example, here with the Phrygian, we could say we only want some of these notes here, maybe like low on most of these, but like the G sharp, very high, and the root note very high as well. And so now it's going to generate this pattern based on these probabilities per note. So I believe that's called stochastic randomization. Regardless, a really, really cool feature. So then if we hit random, you can see here it's actually got a custom over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just hold on my MIDI controller and hold a G note. So it's awesome, but it's not exactly a generative sequence. How do we turn this into a generative sequence? Over here, we've got this auto-regen button. So if we set this to 1 bar, what's going to happen is it's going to play the sequence once, and then it's going to automatically randomize a new sequence. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. So here we can actually choose the probability of each note in the sequence, but we can also choose the amount that it randomizes the probability over here. Okay, so here if we enable polymetry, what this is going to do is it's going to change a different sequence length for each of these lanes. So sometimes it's going to randomize shorter than other times. So you get this really interesting, almost never repeating groove. Okay, so keep in mind, this is very, very basic in terms of the sound design, but what I want to do is I want to show you the power of this kind of like new preset system within the sequences, because we're going to make a couple of generative sequences, and then we're going to try a few different patches on those sequences. So this one is a really cool kind of like acid generative lead type of thing. So we can call this, it's going to call it acid 1. It probably used the name of the scale which we assigned. as to name it there. So the next thing that I want to talk about is how can we make this a lot more generative in terms of trying to emulate a Krell patch. So a Krell patch is essentially it's an idea that comes from the modular world where the pitch is randomized, but also the time is somewhat randomized. So what we can do is we can actually adjust the rate at which the sequence plays back. On top of that, we're not just limited to BPM syncing it. We can actually, or syncing it to the host, we can actually punch in our own BPM kind of like manually over here, which is really, really, really cool because we can get these kind of like speeding up and slowing down kind of like patterns which aren't synced to the tempo of the track. So you can kind of get this polyrhythmic thing going on as well, which is really cool. So anyway, here in the randomization, we're going to choose the sample and hold. We want to set the retrigger source to the clock, and then this basically determines the speed of the clock which we've just assigned. So we can set this to hertz, so it's going to be more of a, kind of less on the grid, and then we can give it some rise and fall to give it more of a kind of rounded pattern like this. So now what we can do is we can apply this random to the rate over here. Okay, so with the Krell patch, generally we want a sound with a kind of longer attack and release envelope. So these sounds kind of like overlap over each other. So let's put in a long decay, sort of halfway sustain, long release, and a long attack. There we go. This with a bit of shimmer reverb. Done. With these kind of more sine wave based patches, it can help to put a high pass filter on the effect rack, because then that just cuts out a lot of the low end. Okay, let's quickly try that acid sequence that we created with an acid style lead. Okay, that about sums it up. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, if you haven't yet, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. I'm going to be uploading these 2 presets to my Patreon for all my $5 supporters. If you want to know what that's all about, check out the link in the description. And see you guys next time. Cheers.